Okay, so today I want to make a video talking about grip lock. I know grip lock is something that pretty much plagues everybody in the disc golf community. Everyone knows about it. You're trying to hit a line right in front of you, maybe put on a little bit of hyzer, get it to flip up. You got trees on left and right. You're just trying to hit a nice little easy gap in the woods. You get your release point, you let go of the disc a little bit too late, and then you're off in the woods on the right side, totally screwed, and you're scrambling. So I want to talk about a trick that I use very frequently, especially recently, to reduce the amount of times that you're going to grip lock to a pretty low number. I haven't had issues with grip lock in a while since using this trick, so it's very helpful for me. Hopefully it is for you. Now, first and foremost, there are, I think, two different examples of what grip lock is. The first of which is when your form is just bad, right? If you're rounding when you throw the disc, a lot of people reach back behind their body, right? Back here, and they'll round to get power. If you don't time your throw perfectly when you do that, then grip lock is going to be a huge issue, because if the disc is coming out like this across, if you release it here or here or here or here or here, it's going to go to all different positions. So you have to release it perfectly for it to go straight, right? So a little bit of error is going to cause a lot of deviation from your wanted line. If this is your issue, I highly recommend working on your reach back, pulling through straight, and getting that straight release. This will make it so that at any point during your follow through, reach back, and power pocket, you're putting the disc on a straight line. So there's less likelihood that the disc is going to get released at the wrong angle. Now, I don't think it's a secret that some pros grip lock sometimes, good players grip lock sometimes, players with good form grip lock sometimes. So if you're like me, you feel like you have generally good form, you're not excessively rounding or doing anything super weird, but you still find yourself grip locking sometimes, releasing it on too much anhyzer, going off to the right, then you're like, well, what am I doing wrong, right? I'm not rounding the disc, I'm not forcing it over, I must be doing something wrong. What I found helps in these situations is to focus heavily on the follow through. So say you were trying to release the disc flat, but you release it on a little bit of anhyzer, right? Your whole release point and everything was fine, but instead of releasing it flat this way, you release it on anhyzer this way. So if you were aiming down the middle of a woods line, it's gonna go off to the right and not go straight down the middle like you wanted it to. Or let's say you were throwing a flippier disc and wanted it to hyzer flip, and you put it on hyzer, or thought you were putting it on hyzer, and then released it flat or like a little bit of anny, same thing is going to go way off to the right. So that's where we come back to the follow through. If you think about it, the angle at which you release the disc, if I'm releasing the disc on a flat angle, my arm is going to follow through this way. If I'm releasing the disc on an anhyzer angle, my arm is going to follow through this way. The angle at which the disc is pointing at is where my arm is going to follow through. If I'm going to release it on hyzer, my arm is going to follow through this way. Obviously, these are extreme examples of anhyzer and hyzer, but the same concept applies for any angle of the disc. You want your follow through of your arm to match what angle of the disc you want coming out of your hand. Something that I think I did all the time was I would think about releasing a disc on a hyzer, and I would pull back on hyzer, come to here on hyzer, and release here, but my follow through would go like this. So what would happen is, even if it was right here when I was releasing it, that follow through here pulled the disc a little bit like this, and it would come out almost on anhyzer or flat, even though I was trying to release on hyzer. It wasn't quite a flat release, but it was enough that the follow through forced it a bit more out of the direction I wanted it to go in. I think there are two situations where this comes in handy a lot. One of them, like I said, is trying to release on a hyzer, especially with a flippier disc, and not wanting it to roll over. This is my super flippy 2020 Calvin Swirly Star Destroyer. If I want to throw this like 400 plus feet in a direction, I'm going to want to release it on hyzer, get it to flip up, and then kind of fade back and finish and get that full flight out of the disc. In order to do that, what I would do is focus heavily on, when I followed through, having my arm come kind of from low to high, so that when I released, I kind of picture it in my mind as like this arc that I draw with my arm, and that arc pushes forward, and that's like the direction the disc goes in with that angle. So if I'm trying to throw in this direction with some hyzer, I'm gonna think of my arm arcing like this. Another example is for rollers. I think a lot of people, when they try to throw rollers, especially with more stable discs, right, you can pick out like a Roadrunner or something and throw a roller pretty easily. But if I want to get something stable down that's going to go real far, it can be kind of tough to get your arm to really go like this, because you're naturally going to want to release this way, not this way. So what I think of is draw that arc. It's going to be like almost completely vertical. So when I release the disc, I'm drawing that arc with my arm, which gets the disc to release on that roller angle. And it doesn't have to be that extreme. It can kind of be, if you want the disc to go down at 45 degrees, well, look at what that angle is. Your arm has to do this. It has to come way up and down at that angle to get it to come down and hit that 45-degree angle on the ground. So I have two discs, two destroyers, and the reason I'm picking destroyers is because I think one of the big times when you're gonna mess this up is when you're trying to throw something flippy, like one of these flippier destroyers, far, because when you power up on it, you're gonna tend to wanna release like you normally do and pull over on it. What I want you to do is really focus on releasing with that hyzer and getting it to go out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw one of them on the wrong angle. I'm gonna do everything right, but I'm not gonna follow through in the way that I want. And you're gonna see how it's gonna turn over. And then when I throw the other one, I'm gonna really focus on that release angle, being on that hyzer, that arc that I talked about, and you'll see how it gets a way better flight. So even though I pulled back on hyzer, when I got to the power pocket, the disc was in hyzer. If you pause the video, I don't know if you're really gonna be able to see it. Because my follow through was across my body like this, the disc released flat. Now, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Everything exactly the same. All I'm doing is thinking on the follow through, my arm is going this way. You'll see how much more hyzer it goes on and how much further it goes. Now that was obviously super over exaggerated and like really nose up and not a great throw, but it does show that you can really influence the release angle of the disc when you think about the way your arm is following through. All right, I'm just gonna try this one more time just to get a better flight than that super nose up. And we have a little bit of a crosswind going here, so it's gonna wanna push it right. So I should really focus on getting that hyzer release to get it to go in the direction I want. So again, gonna try and put some power on it, but really focus on releasing with that arc that I talked about, right? To get the full hyzer release while putting full power on it. That was pretty much exactly what I wanted. With the wind, it does kind of fly a little weird. It's pushing it out to the right, so the hyzer's a little weird, but that's pretty much exactly what I wanted to do right there. Lots of power, got it to rise up, get pretty much the full flight I wanted out of it, and I was able to not turn over on it while powering up on it. So yeah, that's just my little trick for not grip locking as much. I know a lot of people pointed out in my CD1 video that I was releasing on not as much hyzer as I thought. I think that was the main reason that I was doing that, is I was trying to release on hyzer, but because I was trying to throw it hard, I was just doing that natural flat release that is like my default pretty much. Really focusing on the follow through helped me get the disc to release on the angle that I was trying to get it to release on. If you're throwing really slow and controlled, it's not as much of an issue, at least I've found, like with putters or just with like little up shots. I wasn't really screwing up my angles that much. It's more when I'm trying to power up like past 350 feet when I really just try to jam through it like that, and it just naturally wants to release on that flat release or like not as much hyzer as I want. So yeah, that's it. See you guys next time. Peace.